Hey, look at that. We're looking at a actually really new as of this recording, though when it goes up, that's anybody's guess, figure, and that is not common for this channel. I know, I'm scared too. But yes, we're looking at Studio Series War for Cybertron Sideswipe. And I've seen a lot of poo-pooing on this figure. I've had my own kind of like, I don't know, thoughts about it. But I was at our local Target the other day and randomly they had Sideswipe in stock along with Sunstreaker. I'll be looking at Sunstreaker next, but just wanted to do Sideswipe first because I feel like my feelings on this figure are somewhat more complex than is typical in that it's okay. First off, you can see we are starting from robot mode, which is not regular for this channel. I'm actually going to be doing that for the next few figures going forward because they're all newer stuff, and I've started to understand the reason why a lot of people start in robot mode when they look at stuff like this is because that's how they come packaged. So if people want to know how to transform it into the vehicle mode, it helps to go from robot to vehicle. But I just want to, yeah. So we're starting in robot mode, and this is where this figure is the weakest. I definitely agree that the robot mode looks really ropey. He's extremely thin in weird places. He's got this strange backpack that just kind of juts out a little bit, and it's like it's not terrible, but it's weird. And in addition to that, the feet are kind of strange. I mean, it all does kind of close up a bit, but like when you look at him from the side, you can kind of see there's like this big old gap going through his torso. And it's a little bit of a ropey robot mode. Again, like it's just skinny in very weird places. That said, after messing around with this guy for a few days, I've actually kind of come around on him a bit. I mean, I don't think he's, like of the two, Sunstreaker, vastly superior, even though this is actually a much simpler figure. Like engineering-wise, Sunstreaker is really basic. Not necessarily in a bad way, but like I have come around on Sideswipe. I appreciate what's here more. Robot mode definitely isn't the best looking, but there are aspects to it I actually do like. I think the transformation is really interesting and kind of fun to do, if a little bit fiddly in places, and the vehicle mode looks fantastic. So yeah, I don't hate this. I actually like this quite a bit, and unlike Barricade, I'm not coping with how I feel about the figure. I do legitimately enjoy this Sideswipe for what he is. I think that's partially because I went in not really expecting anything, whereas Barricade I went in kind of expecting to enjoy him more. So since I went into, since I opened up Sideswipe and was kind of like, yeah, I'm probably going to hate this, but I still got it because I'm silly. And then I started messing with it. It's like, you know what, this is actually pretty cool. Now, colors and color distribution is actually fine. Like the red looks good. I like that there's a lot of color breakup with the darker grays in different places, as well as some lighter grays, and then some silver accents in like the forearms and the chest. I think the wheels on the shoulders look good. The proportions definitely a little weird. The arms come out kind of far, but it's, it for what it is, I think it's fine. Also, the silver on the shins, nice touch. Something I actually do like about the design of this guy is I like how, and it's something that doesn't really come across in the photos, because it's something that I was like, it really made his chest look flat. But if we look at the chest at more of an angle, you can see it does slope out a little bit, and I actually really like that. It's a gentle slope, but it does slope. And I'm assuming that's correct, and not that I've got it like, yeah, no, it's in there correctly. So yeah, it's like, I like that the chest slopes a little bit. It just adds a little bit of dimension to the robot mode that otherwise did look rather skinny and flat in the photos. And again, he looks, for what he is, I think I'm actually coming around on him, and I think he looks pretty decent. I saw the gun came out of his hand, but yeah, he looks pretty alright. Again, for what he is. I'm not saying this is the best Studio Series War for Cybertron figure that we've gotten, but he does look alright for what he is. The head is also, I actually really like the head. It's very Sideswipe. He's got the horns. It's a very similar shape to the head, to general sideswipey stuff. I probably should have grabbed. I'll go grab those in a bit. The other sideswipes that I have. I love the really dark brown, really dark gray, whatever they use, plastic for the head, coupled with the silver face and the blue eyes. The blue eyes pop really nicely. I really like that. Yeah, it's a good head sculpt. And I like how the head and chest work together. That's a really cool detail about this figure that I do appreciate. And honestly, looking at him like this, when you can't see the legs, I think he actually looks pretty cool. So it's just kind of the skinny legs that I think throw the figure off a bit. But again, after getting used to it, it doesn't really bother me. So yeah, I completely understand and agree with a lot of the criticisms that I've been seeing leveled at this figure, but I also think that doesn't make the figure bad. It isn't a super aesthetically pleasing robot mode, but the figure itself is actually not bad. So articulation is kind of what you'd expect. The head's on a ball joint, so you get some pretty decent side to side. You can look up and down a little bit, and then of course you can rotate all the way around. The shoulders are on ball joints, so you get a little bit of butterfly-ish motion, but primarily you just get that rotating around, and they can go out. Though it's a little bit weird because the stalks go up at an angle. So if you try to rotate up, things kind of get caught. You kind of have to rotate around at an angle. It's very odd, but it works. There you can see the ball joint, how it goes up. It's just molded that way. It's not on a joint that moves. So it's a little weird, but it works. You get a bicep swivel. You get over 90 degrees of elbow bend, which is really nice. The fists don't rotate, but you can bend them in. You do get a waist swivel, but the backpack here can kind of get in the way. You can move it out, which allows it to swivel a little bit more, but then it butts into this. You can rotate it around more, but then it pushes the chest out. So you've got limitations on how far you can rotate the waist, but I think the degree with which you can rotate it before things start moving is fine. Now, the backpack is odd in that it kind of just sits, but if you're careful about it, there are these little tabs here that can kind of settle into the grooves on the insides of the wheels, kind of. Basically, if you push this in, it will click in, and then it won't come out. But if you click it in, it does come out, but it's not, you're not just gonna wiggle it out. But the problem is, if you push it in like that, it hampers the waist articulation a little bit more. But it's a thing you can do. In addition to the waist, you've got the ball jointed hips, which can go forward to 90. They can go back about that far, but you can move the backpack out of the way to go all the way back. So that's a thing. They can go out that far. This panel doesn't like to tab in. It's supposed to tab into the side of the leg here, and it tabs in, but it pops right back out. Whereas on this leg, it stays tabbed in. So that's a thing. I don't know if that's a common problem. I haven't really checked TFW or anything like that, but that's a problem that this one has. But you can go out that far. You've got a thigh rotation. You can bend the knee to very slightly over 90 degrees. And now the feet, despite all of this, it is a little bit disappointing that with everything going on here, you don't actually get an ankle tilt. They're sculpted in an A stance, which is good, but like you can't actually tilt the ankles, and that's a little bit like eh. But you can angle them forward as part of the transformation. So he's pretty reasonably posable, and I like that you can kind of angle him forward a bit to give him that kind of sloped hero stance that we all love to do. Well, that's interesting. Never had that problem before. There we go. So yeah, he is not the best, but I would put him personally above Barricade. And honestly, looking at like the way that he transforms and the look of his alt mode, I'd kind of put him above some other figures too, just because the transformation and the alt mode look are like really cool. And for his weapon accessory, he comes with this gun, which does look kind of neat. I actually think this is a nifty looking gun. He both can and can't hold it. There is no peg for him to hold it, but there is this tab on the bottom here. And that's primarily for storage, where you can tab it onto his back for weapon storage in robot mode, and there's another spot on the back in vehicle mode that you can tab it. But the tab is just the right size that you can actually peg it into his hand, and he will hold it. Like, it's not falling out. So that's a thing you can do. But of course, he can also do the Studio Series War for Cybertron thing where you pull off the forearm, and this pegs in really solidly. But you can pull off the forearm, and it is keyed. You can see there's a flat side there and a flat side there. So you don't have to worry about this wiggling around when it's plugged in. And then this plugs in there. And now he's got the gun hand, and it looks okay on Sideswipe, I think. Like, proportionally and all that, it's not as bad as some of the other weapon things that we've gotten with some of the other War for Cybertron Studio Series figures. But I prefer to do the put the gun in the hand thing. Mostly because storing the hand is also kind of a pain. Like, there's the tab on the back again, so you can like fold up the fist and plug this in back there, but it doesn't look great, and it's kind of annoying to do because it's a rather tight fit. I'm not entirely sure if that's even intentional. It seems like it probably is. I mean, at least you can fold up the fist, but yeah, you can store the fist back there, and that's how it goes. But again, like, he is skinny. Yes, he is skinny and ropey and not the best looking robot mode. That one panel doesn't like to stay in, but that's more of a QC thing. That's not really the fault of the design per se. But I don't know, like, I kind of expected to not like him, and instead I like him. That's just kind of how it's worked out. It's a bit of a surprise for me, but that's how it's gone. That's how I'm feeling. I'm grabbing some, as I'm rambling, I'm grabbing some of the other Studio Series video game figures, because I didn't think to grab those for size comparisons in advance. And I also need to grab Sideswipes. So let me do some actual stuff here while I'm grabbing that. So let's do our regular size comparisons. Move Sideswipe back a bit. Adjust camera angle and bring in our normal size comparisons. There is Dinobot for a normal Voyager, Bova Prime for a tall deluxe, Samus, and Burnout for a regular deluxe. So yeah, he is a little bit, like, height-wise, not mass-wise, obviously, but height-wise, he is a little bit taller than a standard deluxe. Let's bring these two a little bit closer so you can see he does stand a bit. He does stand a bit taller than Burnout, like maybe half a head taller, somewhere around there. For anyone who is into that stuff. Also forgot to do this before, but last effect, gun does thing. There's that. All right, now that is the regular size comparisons. But of course, we got to do some more size comparisons than that. So let's get you situated. You seem a little bit off kilter there, buddy. Here we go. So for other side swipes, here is Shattered Glass side swipe, based off of the Siege / Earthrise mold. So a little taller than that, standard-ish deluxe, and then G2 Masterpiece side swipe. Of course, he's going to be shorter than a Masterpiece figure, but there is how they all come together. Move you in a little bit more. So there they are. And then for other War for Cybertron figures, here we've got War for Cybertron Optimus Prime, who is a Voyager, and definitely is a beefier lad compared to Sideswipe. Also, he's got the DNA upgrade kits, which in my mind are worth it just for the double shoulder wheels, but yeah, maybe at some point I'll look at the DNA upgrade kits, I don't know, but I think it was worth it. I'd had to do a little bit of modification on a couple of spots here, just like tightening some joints and stuff, but I think, you know, the DNA design kit for this Prime, pretty cool. Don't know that it's worth paying as much as you pay for the figure for the kit, but it's fine. Here he is with Voyager Starscream. Again, shorter than a Voyager. Big surprise there. And here he is with the other deluxe that I have from Studio Series War for Cybertron, that being Bumblebee, and I mean, it's Bumblebee, so of course Bumblebee is a lot shorter than Sideswipe. About a full head shorter, maybe a little bit shorter than that. But there is that, and now I think that is enough for all of those size comparisons. So now let's do the most important one, and that is the duck tank. Oh, I should not have chosen all of those size comparisons, because it took me like 20 minutes to transform everything off camera. Now, before we get into transforming Sideswipe, first let me put his arm back on, and this is just going to go off to the side. But if you like this video or any of the other videos that I've done on the channel and you'd like to support me, I do have a Ko-fi or Patreon. Links to both are both at the end of the video as well as down in the description. Otherwise, you can always do the typical YouTube thing of like, comment, share, subscribe. All that usual stuff. Now, to transform Sideswipe. As I said, his transformation is actually really interesting. First thing I'm going to do is tuck in the fists and rotate the arms out. Just fold in the fist, rotate the arm out. There we go. I'm going to pull back this piece, and while we're here, let's just use the space to rotate this little flap around. This is just pegged on. It comes separately in the box, but yeah, this just rotates. So if you really wanted to, you could just pull it off and then pop it back on, but I'm gonna do that. Now, let's untab the arms here. These little gray pieces here, untab from the side. Actually, okay, gotta pull out the chest first, then untab these, because these actually do tab into the chest. So pull these out, flip these up, and have it out like that. Now we can accordion out the chest all the way, and it does actually tab into this strut here. So you want to untab that, and just have that out like that. Pull back here, and the head will disconnect from here, and then we can flip the head down in there, and then that just sits like that. Now this is one of the things that's really interesting. You want to bring these pieces up, and they will meet in the middle. But something you want to do, bring this up a little bit, something that you want to do is you want to, before you close this up, you actually want to bring this piece up, and this thinner strut here will actually be threaded through these two pieces. So this kind of comes up and around and through like this. Then this can close up and this can close up, and they kind of meet in the middle and peg together. And yeah, it's interesting how that works. So with that done, now the arms come down, and these little tabs on the backs of the forearms tab into these little spots right around the waist there. So you bring this arm down and peg that in, bring that down and peg it in, and that's pretty much the entire back of the vehicle. There's a little bit more we got to do later, but that's pretty much it. Now, rotate the waist 180 degrees, take the feet and push them all the way forward. There's like a little notch right above the foot where that little divot will sit. It doesn't like peg in, but it like sits in there. Okay, now we can untab this side flap, though this particular one doesn't tab in on mine, but you want to untab it, and it's on a ball joint. You kind of want to rotate it out and around this way, because that's where you've got the clearance. You want to rotate it forward. So again, untab, rotate forward, like so. Around back here, this panel will open up on either side, and then this piece in the middle here actually rotates around 180 degrees, and you can go in either direction. Now we can close it all up. So I'm going to take the leg here, it could be either leg, but fold it up, and you want to make sure that this piece lines up with the pelvis. So because like it can get hung up if you're not careful, so you just want to make sure that lines up. Make sure that's out of the way, and this comes up like so, and now this here will tab into the top of the forearm. That will solidly peg in there. This flap can close up, and the heel will actually tab into the front of the shoulder. So you want to bring that in and tab that into place. And that will close that up. Same deal on this side. Just rotate it around and make sure that this clears the pelvis area. Make sure that flaps out of the way, and just bring this all up. And with this all up, these two center pieces here will tab together. Not like super securely, but they'll tab together to make sure that they, don't slide around. And then we can peg the heel into the shoulder again. And something I've noted with mine is like you kind of want to be careful with the wheels. It's really easy for them to kind of bow out a little bit because of the ball joints. So just try to make sure that these heels are angled out slightly and not flat with the ground as I'm transforming them. But then this piece will tab in there, and it actually does tab in on this side. So it must be something with that leg tab that's the problem. But there we go. The back piece folds down, and it's actually these pieces here. There are little slots on either side here that tab over these bits here. That's the primary thing holding this down, but there are little pegs here that go into these little gaps on the torso. That's not what pegs it in, but that is a thing that helps you kind of guide it in. So, and get that lined up. Tab these together, and you'll see that those kind of find their spots. And just bring this down, and that will close off back of the vehicle. And finally, for the front, you just bring the hood down, and there's these little slots here that tab over these little divots, not divots, these little bits on the shins, I guess, insides of the knees, whatever. Those pull down, and that comes down, and we'll click in place pretty nicely. And oh, yep, forgot one last thing. These little bits here are actually tabbed over the wheels. You want to unpeg them. You can see there's just a little tab there. It tabs into either of the two peg holes on there, and this just folds all the way back like that. And that tucks along the back of the vehicle mode. And that's it. There is Sideswipe's vehicle mode. And I really like this vehicle mode. I said it at the beginning of the video, but I think the car looks really cool. It's a really neat looking Cybertronian alt mode that, for whatever reason, my lighting setup does not seem to agree with. But I really like the look of this vehicle. It's very sleek. It's sort of like in the same vein as Bumblebee, but not quite. Bumblebee's a lot puffier. Like, if we just grab him real quick, we'll do a proper comparison later, but you can see that Bumblebee's a little bit more plump and roundy, whereas Sideswipe is a little bit more slimmed down and sleek. But I like this vehicle mode a lot. It looks really cool, and it actually this whole figure does make me kind of hopeful that they do a Jazz, because in what was it, Generations or Thrilling 30, whatever it was, they did a Jazz, like Jazz and Sideswipe were the same mold, just reworked a little bit. I'm hoping they do that too, because I wouldn't mind having a Fall of Cybertron Jazz out of this mold, honestly. But yeah, this looks cool. I really like the contours of this car. I like how it's kind of Batmobile-esque, pointy in the front, and there's some really nice curves and contours to it. And I also like how this kind of comes swept back and is a little bit spiky. I like the stripe of silver going up the middle, and the gray does not match the silver, but like it's close enough in tone that this does not stand out to me as a problem, and I appreciate that. And yeah, I like a lot of the silver and the darker colors. Like it's subtle, but there is like a darker shade that they used for this section of the grille, which I like. The wheels, you got the kind of neon red lines that they use to make it look glowy, which I love. The robot mode chest is hanging out the back, but aside from the Autobot logo, I feel like it just kind of works as part of the car, especially because that silver just kind of continues all the way along the back. This bit is a little bit but it's fine. It's the very back of the car, doesn't really bother me. And then you've got the Autobot logo on the hood that is, I appreciate that they went with like the kind of neon red for the Autobot logo, but that light red on a darker red, there's not enough contrast between the colors. It's easy to get lost, and it just doesn't stand out that well. But that's kind of the worst thing I could say about it. But I like that they painted the implied windows in black too. It's a nice vehicle mode. It looks really cool, and the detailing's there. And I honestly can't really think of much in the way of missing paint. I mean, I'm sure there is some stuff that was, painted or otherwise colored in the game model that is not represented here, but it looks good. I don't know. I don't know what else to say. It covers up the robot well, and that transformation is really interesting. I actually think it's pretty darn cool. As I said at the beginning of the video, it's just it goes places that I wasn't expecting, and I think that's really neat. Also, it does roll, especially if you've got the if you're careful to keep these from bowing outwards too much. It does roll pretty well. I think it's the ball joints that's the reason why these like to squish out a bit. But yeah, car rolls really well. And then for the gun, you've got the tab up there, and then you've got a slot in the front or in the back. So if you really wanted to, you could tab it there, but that looks silly. It's more meant to tab back here and give him his roof-mounted gun. I don't really like the look of it, but it's where you can store it. It's fine. So yeah, it's a really... I don't know, like I said, as I keep saying, I do actually like this figure for what he is. Again, not denying in the slightest that the robot mode is a bit The robot mode is definitely a bit but the rest of him is pretty cool. And this is kind of It's a new backdrop. You may have noticed. I don't know, but it's taken some getting used to. Figure out how I'm using all of this and getting my lighting set up and stuff. I'm still kind of working out the kinks. But anyway, let's move on to size comparisons. So bring in our Voyager, our Tall Deluxe Surrogate, Samus, and Burnout, and zoom out a little bit more. So there is Sideswipe in vehicle mode, and the vehicle mode does actually compact really well. That's something I thought was pretty cool too, in addition to the engineering actually being surprisingly involved. Like, he is a little bit taller than Burnout, but the vehicle is notably smaller, which I just think is really neat. I like that detail. Now for other size comparisons, because I did so many. Let's angle you down a little bit more and bring in Shattered Glass Sideswipe. So there are those two together, and they're almost the same size. Shattered Glass Sideswipe is definitely like bigger in terms of like spreads out more. Robot mode's a little bit bulkier though, so that kind of makes sense. But yeah, it's slightly smaller, despite the robot mode being actually being taller. Actually, let's do this. There we go. That's a better angle. So there is Shattered Glass Sideswipe, bringing in Masterpiece G2 Sideswipe. It's clearly the Masterpiece figure is bigger, which I think is, that's not going to surprise anyone. It's like gunk on the hood. I don't like that. But there are those two together. Also, there is Masterpiece G2 Sideswipe with Reaper labels, and this is I like the Reaper labels. I don't regret getting them, but it does bum me out that the fluorescent nature of the green is misrepresented on the website. This green is a lot more dull and faded than it looks on the in the photos on the website. I still think it contrasts well with the black, but I wish this was more vibrant. But it's not. Anyway, as for the Fall of Cybertron, War for Cybertron comparisons, here we've got Sideswipe with Bumblebee, two deluxes, and Bumblebee's car is a little bit smaller, but also bulkier. There he is with Starscream. Of course, Starscream is bigger because Starscream is a Voyager. Starscream is quite a bit bigger. Of course, he also doesn't really compact. He just kind of shifts things around a little bit. And here he is with the giant battering ram that is Optimus Prime. And yeah, he's way smaller than Optimus Prime. Also, it's got the DNA upgrade kits. There's the thing that closes off the back so you don't see the fists, which is like, it's fine, it's whatever. I wish these held in better, but it is cool. Then the wheeled things kind of tuck in there. You can keep everything on during transformation, which I do appreciate, so there is that at least. But yeah, there is Sideswipe with Prime, and I think that is it for the regular vehicle size comparisons, so we're going to round this out with the Duck Tank. And that does it for Studio Series War for Cybertron Sideswipe. And as I've said many times, I do like, yes, the robot mode is a little bit and the articulation is a little bit weird, but I really do like the transformation because it's so interesting, and the vehicle mode looks fantastic. So I don't know, I can't hate this thing. It's not like Barricade. Again, like Barricade, I definitely had more reservations with. I will admit, I didn't lie in the video. It's just that, like, after making the video, my thoughts on Barricade kept changing, where I was just kind of like, yeah, maybe I'm not as enamored with this guy as I originally thought. But like Sideswipe, I've been mulling on it for several days, and I don't know, like this again, like the way this all comes together is interesting and clever in a lot of places. I do really wish that this panel tapped in, but oh well. Like, yeah, it's an interesting transformation. He's a good looking vehicle. The engineering is just fun to mess with, and I wish the robot mode looked a little bit better, but given the constraints, I don't know that it's really that egregious. I don't know. I can't hate it because I do think it's enjoyable in its own right. And again, like transforming it, I think is actually really cool. It's just that the robot mode doesn't look fantastic. But even then, I think I can kind of look past the non-fantastic looking nature of the robot. And like there are certain aspects to it that I do think look pretty good. Like I said, I like the sloped chest. The colors are nice. It's just more than anything, it's the proportions. But like messing around with him more and more, I do think it's fair to say I'm glad I got him. You know, as I said, he's not my favorite of the Studio Series War for Cybertron figures. But for what he is, he's pretty cool. Not the best looking robot mode, but again, like the more and more I look at him, the less and less a lot of those robot mode design shortcomings bother me. He is definitely imperfect, but like I keep saying, it's fun to mess with, and I don't hate him. I don't know. I can't hate him. I just can't. He even manages to pull off the pop off the hand to do the gun thing better than a lot of other figures in this line, at least to me. But that is enough rambling about this guy. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Studio Series War for Cybertron Sideswipe. What do you all think of this guy? Because I know everyone's got opinions on this guy. But whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. I really wish that this would stay tabbed in, but again, that's not necessarily the figure's design that's the problem. That's just this particular figure. But yep, always enjoy hearing from you all. Thank you everybody for watching, and as I said, as promised, next time we will be taking a look at Sunstreaker.